Hi, I'm Dr. Wheaton Williams. I'm an infectious disease physician at Catawba Valley Health System, and I'd like to spend a few minutes talking to you about COVID-19 vaccine side effects and also our obligation to protect ourselves and our patients from COVID-19 through immunization. As healthcare workers, we have a long history of using vaccines to protect ourselves and our patients from infectious disease threats. Currently, we're all screened for immunity to viruses such as measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis B, varicella, and immunization with influenza to make the hospital a safer place for our patients. The COVID-19 pandemic and the availability of the COVID-19 vaccine is another opportunity for us to make the hospital a safer place, to protect ourselves, our family, our loved ones, and our patients from this horrible virus. So I know that many people have particular concern with the mRNA vaccines because this is a new technology. So I want to talk to you a little bit about mRNA. mRNA is one of the building blocks of life. mRNA encodes the information needed for our body to make proteins and enzymes. All of our cells need proteins and enzymes to carry out their normal function, and mRNA provides the instruction for the protein production. After proteins are made, the mRNA is eliminated from the body through enzymes, and so mRNA fragments are only short-lived within the body. When we use an mRNA vaccine, we're introducing an mRNA that encodes the spike protein for the virus that causes COVID-19. Our body will take the instructions from the mRNA to produce the spike protein. Our body will then recognize that the spike protein is foreign and produce an immune response to the spike protein. And this immune response will then protect us against infection from COVID-19. The vaccine mRNA fragments will be degraded by the enzymes in our cell, and the mRNA vaccine fragments are short-lived. The mRNA vaccine fragments do not incorporate with the DNA and do not become part of our body. So what do we know about COVID-19 vaccine side effects? First, the most common vaccine side effects are mild and include symptoms like injection site pain, which means pain where the vaccine is administered in the arm. Patients may develop fatigue, dizziness, headache, fever, chills, this type of thing. These symptoms are generally short-lived, lasting 2 days or so, and they're more common after the second dose of vaccine. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been associated with a rare but serious side effect of low platelet and blood clot formation. This side effect appears to be most common in women ages 18 to 49. This occurs at a rate of about 10 cases per million vaccines in women in this age group. As a result, I think women less than 50 should consider getting an mRNA vaccine, such as the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine, rather than the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Currently, investigators are looking into the possibility that the mRNA vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, may be associated with a small risk of inflammation of the heart. This side effect has been observed primarily in men aged 16 to 39. The rate of this side effect appears to be about 16 cases per million population. I think it's important to note that the likelihood of serious harm is far greater from COVID-19 infection than it is from any of these COVID-19 vaccines.
I would like to address the concern about these vaccines being experimental. I'd like to address that in two ways. First, I'd like to give you an understanding of our understanding of this virus. It is not a new virus to the researchers. It has actually been studied for the last 50 years. And more intently, in the last 20 years, have we really recognized the importance of the coronavirus and done significant amounts of research on how this virus works and how we can also develop vaccines to treat this. So it's under those circumstances that we began the process of researching these vaccines and started to develop new vaccines to treat this illness. This happened under the same guidelines and regulations of any vaccine development or medication development and under the guidance of the FDA. This worked very well in this situation because we were able to expedite a lot of the research to develop these vaccines into trials that were combined as well as running side by side. This was made available because we had a lot of interest in volunteerism for receiving the vaccine in the trials, as well as the increased funding that came through the federal government to help with the development of the vaccine. And finally, we had a worldwide collaboration of researchers sharing data and information in order to make this possible. So I hope that helps you to understand that this was not new technology developed too rapidly to be safe. Okay, I would like to address the question about whether or not it's safe to receive the COVID-19 vaccine if you've had a previous allergic reaction to a vaccine. First, I'd like to say if you have had a severe reaction to a vaccine previously, we would recommend that you consult with your physician prior to receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. In patients that have had a previous reaction related to egg components, latex, or other preservatives in vaccine, I will tell you that within the Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson vaccine, there are no components related to those.
So in the U.S., 1 out of every 51 people who have been diagnosed with COVID have died in this country. In this county, it was more like 1 out of every 64, but that's significant risk for death, not to mention the risk for heart attacks and strokes and clots that come after you have, or that can come after you have COVID and can continue to be a risk for a while. Your chance of being hospitalized if you're an adult currently in the U.S. from the beginning of this to the end has been about 1 in 175. But if you're 50 to 64, that becomes 1 out of every 120. Once you're in the hospital, 1 out of every 4 people can end up in the CCU, and once you're in the CCU, 1 out of every 3 people end up on a ventilator. And the answer to that has changed over time, but the answer now is basically once you're out of quarantine, so 14 days out, you're able to go get vaccinated, and that's when you should. You should get vaccinated as soon as you have an opportunity to. You do have some natural immunity. The problem with that is we don't know exactly how good your immunity is and how long it's going to last. We know that with the vaccine because we've been sort of studying that, and so you want to diminish your risk as much as possible. So it is easier to just go ahead and get the vaccine, and then you know what your immunity is. There is some early data that suggests once you've had COVID and get vaccinated that you're immune for a much longer time than even folks with the vaccine. So that looks really promising. So right now, for sure, we know that the vaccines are good for at least 6 months. And the researchers are now continuously watching the folks who have been vaccinated to see how long their titers hold up, which is how we'll know that they have immunity built up. So we can't know the answer to how long until we see how low the titers fall and then what percentage of the people that do that. So it's going to take a little while to know that. You just have to know that at 6 months you're still protected, and that their researchers are looking at that. So you should know within 3 or 4 months after they know that you need a vaccine that you're going to need it. So our current vaccines are very effective at addressing all the variants that are available. The baseline for having a good vaccine when we started this was for it to reduce your risk by 50%. And our vaccines, even against the variants, even in the weakest links in their studies, have been much greater than 50%. So our vaccines are very good and very effective at preventing severe and moderate disease, even against the variants. And it's not just necessarily about you and how it's going to affect you. I've read that each person that catches coronavirus can give it to 3 people. And so it doesn't take long until you've exposed, 3 people, and those 3 people give it to 3 more people, and that's 9, and those 3 people give it to 3 more people, and that's 27, and those 3 people give it to 3 more people, and then you've got somebody whose death you could potentially be responsible for because you were part of the spread. And so you can get vaccinated and pretty much eliminate that risk, to you being one out of every 51 people who catch it and can pass away in the States or have passed away. So that's for you personally, and then also for the community at large. It's a pretty, just looking at the math, it's a really easy decision to make if you're just looking at the raw math on it, the risks. So if you're someone working in this facility and you're taking care of someone that's immunocompromised and you're not vaccinated, then you're increasing their risk for catching COVID significantly. And so, I mean, it's a very difficult position to put them in, because you went into healthcare because you want to help people and make their lives better, and then juxtapose that to you're not willing to get vaccinated to protect them, the most vulnerable people in our population, the older, the weaker folks, and then our folks that are immunocompromised for whatever reason.
So let's talk why pregnant women needs to get the vaccine. First of all, when we are pregnant, our immune system can be weak a little bit. So the way it could be completely healthy woman that became pregnant, no problem in her life, if the COVID is severe and she develops severe shortness of breath and many other symptoms, we know now, after more than 1 year, that pregnant women can be more predisposed to get into the ICU for more time, getting into ventilators. So only do you think that if we are healthy, we can develop to COVID very severe. So pregnant ladies are more predisposed to be very, very sick at the unit. Second, if you have other medical conditions, like for example diabetes, the diabetes weakens your immune system too. So imagine you having a comorbidity and having COVID together, you can develop more symptoms than expected. So that's why one of the most important reasons we need to advocate to receive the vaccine. Another thing that we like to, because we know for sure, we advocate for pregnant ladies to have, for example, influenza vaccine. We know other respiratory viruses cause many complications during pregnancy, especially later during the pregnancy in the 3rd trimester. Severe illness in pregnant women can predispose to have preterm labors and increase the rate of C-sections. So let's talk about breastfeeding. There's 2 good studies here in the United States. One is from the University of Harvard, that it was published on JAMA, that include 103 pregnant ladies, and they measure over 6 weeks how many antibodies they produce. All of them produce antibodies. So if you're telling me that if I receive a vaccine and I develop antibodies and I can transfer that to my baby, that will be a plus. We are recommending to a pregnant lady after that and breastfeeding, if that will protect my baby to have the COVID, I will do it for them. None of those add or alter the genetic material in the woman's body or the fetus. As a matter of fact, a study on United Kingdom, they have a big study that the enrolled people cannot be pregnant, and after they get enrolled and got the vaccine, they were pregnant.
So my concern is that our current immunization rate locally is inadequate to protect us against ongoing infection with COVID-19. And I'm afraid the pandemic is going to drag on longer if we continue to have such a low immunization rate. I encourage all of you to reconsider getting a COVID immunization. As I stated, I feel that they're safe and effective. I can tell you on a personal level that I have received the COVID-19 vaccine. The American Medical Association has done surveys, and it appears that 96% of U.S. physicians are fully immunized. I can tell you that my wife, my children, my 93-year-old mother have all gotten their COVID-19 vaccines, and they're all fully immunized. So I have great faith in these vaccines, and I feel that high-level immunization rates are the best way to put the COVID-19 pandemic behind us. Thank you.